By the way, we've got a burgeoning top 5 in the chat of ranking Penn State's defensive coordinators over time under James Franklin.
Why not, T. Frank? I don't even want to get into that. I almost asked you to give me your list, and I said, no, I thought better of it in the moment.
I wrote it down. So if you want to do it, we can fire it off.
Let's do it.
All right. So we got number 5.
Number 5.
So this is just not some of this is not fair. Bob Shoop is number 5. He came to Penn State at a time during the sanctions fallout where there was not enough talent. I think in that light, he did a very good job. But in terms of overall production and also the number of years he was here, just number 5 from that perspective. And recency bias is super important. And so this list is not well thought out, but he's number 5 here. No statistics. This is all off vibes, honestly.
Yeah, I think that we don't have to spend a whole bunch of time on this, but yeah, I think unfairly Bob Shoop is always going to end up at that number on the list, just simply because of what Penn State has done on defense as its profile has grown over the course of the James Franklin era, and it recruited better. I mean, there's just no two ways about it that the Penn State cupboard in so many ways, in every way, is stacked much differently today than it was when Bob Shoop first got to Penn State. I don't actually know what Bob Shoop is up to these days. I kind of wonder about that. You go
he
number
was
4
at
and I'll
Tennessee.
check on that.
Yeah. Here's number 4.
Number 4.
Talking about recency bias, number 4 is Tom Allen. Tom Allen did a great job. Here's the thing. He was here for a year, so just that bumps him down the list. And then the conversation we've had today of like what we were expecting versus what we got, and then kind of the way you feel about it. These are all good coordinators. They all produced good defenses at Penn State, but generally, I guess in my mind, the idea of what was expected output versus what happened, it just became kind of that conversation in my head. And I went number 4. So I don't care what you have to say. I put him at number 4.
Who's at number 3?
Well, let's get to it.
Number 3.
Jim Knowles.
Okay.
He has not coached a single game for Penn State. He has not. He's given like 2 speeches to the program. This is purely off reputation. He could be number 1 by the end of the list. Like starting at number 3 gives you an idea of the prestige and the respect. And guys who come in with a system, guys who come in with a plan, guys who have this, everything I just described of him over the last 48 minutes. My expectations are it will be very quick that he moves up this list if he stays here more than a year. So number 3, Jim Knowles.
So it's interesting when you do these things and you work off of the assumption that the guy who is not done anything at Penn State before, but you know what he was brought here to do. And so it's easy to put him at this part of the list because you know what the outcome is expected to be. Yep. Will it be? We'll find out. But interesting thought. Let's go to number 2.
Number 2.
Manny Diaz. No, obviously not. It's Brent Pry. Brent. So somebody said late. The conversation in the chat is late Brent Pry was much better than early Brent Pry. And I agree. I think part of that is true. Part of it is he also had Jair Brown and Jaquan Brisker, and he had some really talented teams late in his career. That 2021 defense was low-key great. Like they were really good and balanced across the board. And I do think that over time, he elevated the talent to a higher level than maybe where it got drafted in the NFL, because the conversation here is also about the talent level and not just good football players at the college level. Do you have superstars? Do you have guys that go on and be stars in the NFL? Because you will look as smart as your best football players. Because there are so many things you can do. Everyone knows how to do them, from the concept side, but can you actually get them done with the players on the football field? That opens up a whole can of worms for you if you're the defensive coordinator to have that kind of talent. So obviously, number 1. It has to be Manny Diaz. Obviously, James Franklin talked about Manny Diaz not trying to replace Brent Pry, that was kind of a laughable conversation. We talked about it by the end. Franklin acknowledged he left an imprint on Penn State. He left a big shadow, big shoes to fill. By the way, another great conversation in the chat is the mixed metaphors, which I am all about. We got to get to those at some point. But yeah, it set the blueprint for what Tom Allen was supposed to do at Penn State. Was we want you to craft a version of the Penn State defense, which is a version of the Manny Diaz defense. And so everyone who's been talking about Anthony Poindexter, it's always been like, well, just have him do what Manny did. He was here, and like replicating that, I think you can see by the fact that Tom Allen is a good defensive coordinator that produced a good team with NFL level talent. There was just a difference. And Manny Diaz set that blueprint at Penn State that I'm curious, does Jim Knowles follow? Like, are there elements of aggression that are higher in this particular defense in 2025 than we've seen from him in the past? Because that's part of the Penn State DNA. That 7-up package, some of those blitz looks and all those things they've done, again, similar to what he's done over his time. But Manny Diaz kind of like set a blueprint that no one can match across college football, by the way. You know, there's two guys in my mind that play like Manny Diaz. Brian Flores in the NFL and Manny Diaz that dictate to the offense, you will do this because we are forcing you into this box. And, you know, there's a thousand ways to do things, but that is one definable trait and one definable system that he has created that works. Like sometimes to the fact that I don't know how he gets it to work, but he does get it to work.
Yes. And Manny Diaz, I think Penn State fans, recency bias, of course, is a part of this. Success is, of course, a part of this. But he's just, the Penn State fan base gravitated to him immediately. And then his defenses came out and played exactly as I think most, if not every Penn State fan hoped they would. And it was fun and it was exciting. And so not that any of the other coordinators we mentioned so far, you couldn't say the same thing about, but it was just his personality and the way his defense played just went so perfectly together, and it really excited Penn State fans, and I think a lot of Penn State fans would, put him atop their list, no question, ranking Penn State defensive coordinators